Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and guess what? All those Ocarina of Time remake videos I've been making since 2020 were for something. They were for this moment, the confirmation of just that. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is being remade, or perhaps it's more than just being remade here, depending on how you choose to look at the wording of that. Because as Nintendo says here on Twitter, on Nintendo of America's page, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time will be reborn. That's right, reborn on Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026. So yes, this is coming out this year. Yes, this is going to be the big holiday title for this year. Yes, it's only for Nintendo Switch 2. It's a big exclusive that will take advantage of the hardware. And yes, they're doing this, and they're doing this in a very, very big way, where they're not even using the wording remake. They're calling this a rebirth, a reborn. Now, you know, it is still a remake of sorts for sure. Like, it's still following the typical style of Nintendo branding when it comes to remakes. Notice here, this is the title, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. There's no subtitle, there's no deluxe, no definitive edition, nothing like that. Typically, when Nintendo does a remake, it's just the title. Look at The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake, look at Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, look at Super Mario RPG, or even the recent Star Fox. Notice how all these titles are just the title. And so at the very least, what Nintendo is doing here is a full remake. And notice how I say at the very least, and you probably also figure based off the title of this video, I do not believe this is just a remake. I think you could look at Star Fox and say that that's more than just a remake, because yes, while the levels are one-to-one, and Nintendo was very clear about the messaging for this title, that it's a remake of Star Fox 64 with one-to-one levels, but there's a lot of new story content, and then there's a new multiplayer content, there's a new challenge mode content, and all the augmented reality stuff as well. Perhaps a little bit more, we shall see. But that is the package there. And that package is a budget title this year by Nintendo. This Ocarina of Time remake is not going to be a budget title. I think that's very clear. I think it's going to be the big holiday title. And I'm already led to believe they were looking at something here that is on a greater scope, on a greater level than the Star Fox remake, which, as I already argued, is more than just your typical remake, at least for Nintendo standards. And I think what we're looking at here is something that may be more along the lines of what Capcom has been doing with the Resident Evil remakes, where we're talking about a rebirth, a retelling of these games for modern standards, where there will be structural changes. And so things could be very, very dramatic here, and I am over the moon excited for this. I think what we're looking at, and as I dive into the analysis for today's video, I think it'll become more and more apparent what I'm getting at here, just how significant of a change we're looking at here. Like, I do think this is going to be effectively a new experience for many, many, many people here, if not everyone, depending on how ambitious they go, and I'm led to believe it's very ambitious. This is just an extraordinary thing, is what I'm trying to say. Like, this is the big deal thing for this year. This is going to be the primary topic for the rest of the year. This is going to be a big, big deal, and I am over the moon hyped. I'm sure many of you are as well. So if you're looking forward to more discussions on this Ocarina of Time remake that I think is more than just a remake, stick around. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. We'll still talk about all the other Nintendo things. I will be diving into my thoughts on the Treehouse stuff and the overall Direct, and talking about Xenoblade Genesis and Fire Emblem and Splatoon Raiders and Dustbloods. All that's going to happen. But right now, what we're focusing on is what's going to be one of the greatest experiences ever. I am so all in on this. And there's a lot I want to talk about this game from what we've seen already. However brief it may have been, you already know, we've found a lot. And so that's what we're getting into today. But first, here's a brief message. Do you find yourself feeling tired, unable to take a good nap during the day from wherever you may be? Then perhaps you are in need of a soft, comfortable sleep mask that blocks out all light. Fortunately, Mantasleep, the sponsor for today's video, has just that, a quality sleep mask. This sleep mask has super soft, comfy cushions that cover your eyes and block out all light. It's easy to adjust to different sizes, and it feels great to wear. and it's helped me personally fit in just a bit more rest during my days. And signing up now might just be the perfect time to enjoy the summer night sale between June 19th through July 15th to save up to 20% off. So if you're looking to improve your sleep and energy, check out the Mat to Sleep mask using the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. Alright, so to kick off this initial analysis here, let me just first play back the teaser one more time. It's pretty brief, but there are some things I want you to pay attention to. The audio parts, the music, the narration. It's important to pay attention to this, I would say.
Long ago, there was a land called Hyrule, created by beings of supreme divinity. At the very edge of this kingdom, there lay a small forest. Within it, an ancient solitary tree quietly watched over the inhabitants of the forest. These forest dwellers were called the Kokiri. Each had a fairy companion, and they lived out their innocent lives in these woods. However, there was one particular boy who did not have a fairy.
Okay, so if you listen through, you probably notice some things, like, clearly they have the Kokiri music, this is using Ocarina of Time music, but also what was played is completely different from anything we've heard before. We hear little elements that remind us of Ocarina of Time, but it's also its own thing. And the music here definitely evokes something of great ambition, like the beginning of a grand adventure here. And so that's very exciting, but also that tells us we're looking at a lot of new musical tracks here, a lot of remixing. This is going to be told in a way that I think is going to be very ambitious. A big point I've tried to make in a lot of these discussions about this Ocarina of Time remake is that Ocarina of Time is considered to be like that quintessential adventure game. It is, for many people, for quite a few years, it was considered the greatest Zelda game ever. And while some might debate things like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, there are still many that still hold to that idea that Ocarina of Time is the best Zelda game, and for many, just the greatest game ever made. And so, going back to this, there is something that I think they need to do. They really need to hone in on showing just how epic this is, and music is a big part to that. But something else about the audio here, there's narration. The narration is pretty good. It sounds like a great start to what we're listening to here. Like, I almost feel like I'm listening to kind of like a movie, like a medieval fantasy kind of movie. Now, I don't know who the voice would be for. Perhaps Rauru, perhaps Kapora Gabora, definitely not the Deku Tree in my opinion. But regardless, this is a voice to the game, and that tells us, most likely, that there's going to be voice acting, at least in a similar fashion to what we saw in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Which I think is something I'm going to be going back to several times throughout this video. I do think that this is a modernization. This is that next big Zelda adventure. And I think the big idea here is that this is meant to garner a similar level of excitement, a similar level of attention, like Breath and Tears. This is a super big deal, and I'm not sure if everyone's really realizing just how big of a deal it is. And so let's just dive even deeper into what we're talking about here. So just looking through here, right, like we can see that they're narrating through this scene, and there's some pretty cool stuff we're seeing. So for example, I see an archway here, and a Triforce. I wonder, is this a subtle sort of little hint towards the Temple of Time? Potentially. This here is Hyrule Castle. That's clear. But it's just, the way it's being shared is very abstract, and I find that quite curious. But let's get out some other angles here. We do see the Deku Tree here, and I'm going to talk more about this in a moment, but I just kind of want to let it play. Notice all the little cool particle effects. I know the particle effects may be subtle, but let's just remind ourselves that even in Ocarina of Time, they had these little gold pollens or particles flying around, and I wonder if that's kind of like a similar thing here, or if it's just kind of like your typical atmospheric effect. It may be that. I'm still mentioning it here because maybe it's a little bit more. Now, here we get a better look at the Deku Tree on this kind of tapestry sort of thing we're looking at here. And I'm also noticing that it looks like the castle stuff even goes beyond, which is curious. And there's something down there too, which I haven't figured out quite yet what that is, but maybe we'll figure that out eventually. But yes, we're looking at the Deku Tree here. But this depiction of the Deku Tree is very different from the Deku Tree in the OG Ocarina of Time or the 3DS version. They're basically the same game, just slightly improved visuals, at least in comparison to what we're looking at here. Like, we're looking at design changes, is what I'm getting at. These are design changes. This is not the same version of the Deku Tree, just with better visuals. This is a reimagining of the Deku Tree from Ocarina of Time, which I think further supports my point that we're looking at a new experience here. Notice all these branches, like they're all over the place, they're scattered. Notice all the different leaves. Notice there's even looks like there's some flower buds coming out as well. So this is a very different looking version of the Deku Tree that we haven't seen before. And what I think is really cool, just looking here, you can see the brows, the nose, you can see what would be the eyes, you see the mustache, the beard. The beard is very apparent there with all those different branches. And so I'm already left thinking that when we see this depicted with the 3D visuals and not just on a tapestry, we're going to see this redesigned Deku Tree. And the beard, I think, is going to part ways to reveal the opening inside the Deku Tree to get into the dungeon. And this already gets me extremely excited, because you know what this kind of indicates to me? This indicates to me that we're looking at reimagined dungeons here. Because the way the Deku Tree is being depicted, his structure is very different. And thinking about it even more so, if we were to be entering the Deku Tree to enter a dungeon with these modern visuals in mind, they're going to have to redesign the Deku Tree in a way where he is far larger than any other prior depiction of the Deku Tree, including Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like, they need to make him bigger than the original version of the Deku Tree in Ocarina of Time, so it makes sense to enter him and you can see this massive dungeon to explore. And I definitely do kind of feel like this is a hint that the dungeons are going to be seeing redesigns here, where they're going to still carry that essence of what that dungeon was in the original Ocarina of Time, but they're going to be new experiences at the same time. That is what I'm left thinking by looking at this new design for the Deku Tree. So I actually think this is a much bigger deal than what people realize here. It's not just about him looking a little bit different. It's about the suggestion about this game seeing massive redesigns across the board, and perhaps from a gameplay experience as well, which I think is more likely considering these massive redesigns. Now, in terms of the plot details, it seems to be kind of just summarizing basically what we understood. It mentions like these supreme deities, the 3 goddesses, but it also talks about Link and him being that lone child. We're seeing the return of the Kokiri, which is really cool. So we see them being depicted here. Now, what I'm curious about is just kind of thinking about modern Zelda and how they'll depict NPCs and how they'll have active lifestyles. Because when this game initially came out, they were just kind of standing around for the most part. Like, there was one that was playing around with rocks, maybe that's what's being suggested here. But I can kind of envision, just by looking at how these Kokiri are being depicted here, that we're going to see them moving around and acting a bit more lively when we see them within the normal gameplay experience. But again, continuing, now that's becoming more apparent, this is like some sort of tapestry that's hanging in some sort of dark area, perhaps the throne room, perhaps the castle. And I think this is extremely interesting because I don't think like this is just something for the teaser and we're never going to see it in the actual game. I think we're going to actually see this in the actual game. Think about it like this. This is not too different from what we've seen with the introductions in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where there's like a mural or a tapestry, and you can find those in the game. I do think we're going to see this as well. So where would this be? And that just gets me more thinking, okay, there's just going to be different stuff here, because where could you go to find something like this? I don't think this is going to be in the Kokiri Forest. I feel like this could be in some sort of tomb or cave or castle, perhaps a dark part of the castle maybe, because this is a clearly very dimly lit area. And so that may even come with an implication of more areas to explore, perhaps even us actually getting a better proper exploration of the castle, which further supports my thinking here that we are looking at a new experience, a retelling of Ocarina of Time. Like, we will get the essence, we will get the spirit, the major plot points will still be there, but how it's all shared, how it's all done and experienced is gonna feel like something new. That is truly what I'm left to think with what they're sharing here, and just kind of continuing, because there is more. Is it a lot more? Well, maybe so. We kind of see more of the Kokiri working through on this side, speaking more to my point. Like, it's not just rocks. We see playing with a plant. Looks like this person's like has some sort of dagger, playing around, cutting grass maybe. So again, I think we'll see more involvement of them. We do see Link here. And, you know, I find this interesting just kind of thinking about it more. Why is he here like this? Like, I'm just thinking about when we see this in the game is what I'm kind of getting at. So I'm just very curious on the timeline of things here. Maybe this is just showing him when he was young, but he still looks kind of like a kid. Is this something that we see in the future when we are an adult Link after some time has passed? That's a possibility. Some people might just think that maybe this is just not in the game at all, just purely for promotional purposes, but I really doubt that because it's not usually how Nintendo does things. So I think, again, yeah, we'll probably see this at some point. But now we see not just a tapestry, but like a cutscene right before we're getting into the gameplay. Remember how I was talking about how maybe like the particle effects we were seeing were maybe not just atmospheric effects? I take it back. They were atmospheric effects, but this isn't. These are little green things that are floating around the air that we'll probably see throughout the area of Kokiri Forest and such. And we are seeing a very detailed depiction of young Link. And there's a lot here, really. So firstly, I mean, the obvious thing, the Triforce is on his hand. That is not shown like that at all. So like they're already kind of really going in on depicting the story of the Triforce here. And that's kind of exciting to think about because the story of the Triforce has taken a backseat with recent Zelda games. So with this rebirth of Ocarina of Time, it's an opportunity to really tell us about that story and the importance of it. So keep that in mind because I do think there's more to kind of get at with this. But just kind of looking at like this up close stuff here, we're seeing like hay, and we're seeing like, you can see like the little bristles, like you can see the up close detail. Or notice Link's hair. Like you can see all the individual strands of hair. Like to me, this is like, yeah, in terms of like visual fidelity, we are looking at kind of something like what we saw with Final Fantasy VII Remake or the Resident Evil remakes. Like it's that level of visual fidelity and detail that we're seeing here. Like something that's kind of interesting, I don't think we've ever seen this level of detail for nails in a Nintendo game. I don't think so. Like you can see the cuticles, you can see the edges of the nail, how the color changes naturally. Like this is the most detailed nails we've ever seen in a Zelda game, which is kind of funny, but that is what's going on here. Very interesting. But here's something else that's very interesting, as I'm kind of zooming out a little bit, going back. This is Link's house, right? And what's curious about it to me, few things. One, notice how he's not wearing a hat. I think the hat's right there. Actually, you can put it on. It has like little beads on it, so it's more detailed. Huh. This is, like, I'm figuring out stuff as I'm recording, talking about this here. So this is probably his hat here, but it looks like it has a design on it, little beads. And so I'm now just thinking about how he's going to look when he's running around. But you take a look at the green tunic, it looks like it's made out of leaves. Like you can see here, these elements right here, and that gets me wondering about the movie, because we know there's Kokiris in the movie, and the way they're going to be clothed and garbed is going to be different. So there seems to be like an intentional connection with that, which is super cool. Not saying the movie is going to be a retelling of Ocarina of Time again, that's not what it's going to be, but there may be elements that will remind people of the remake and so on. But just like the depiction of this bed, you can see a pot right here. It looks like it's all encased around like rock. There's hay, there's leaves all around, there's branches. This is very, very different than what we saw in the original Ocarina of Time. And so the entire room, I think it's pretty easy to sort of understand, has been remade. And when I say remade, I don't mean taking the same look and making it kind of just look nicer with better textures. Like, no. It's been completely redesigned. Link's clothes, his look, the bed, the house, everything is completely new, reimagined, which is a ginormous deal. It is a ginormous deal. Like, we're gonna see Link running around, and it's not gonna be just like a basic green tunic here. Does that look like a basic green tunic to you? It doesn't to me. And so that's super interesting. Like, to me, again, it further fuels the idea that we're looking at essentially a new experience, but a new experience through the time period of Ocarina of Time. Remember that Zelda is a game of legends, right? And so a legend is something told, but perhaps a legend can be retold in a different way. And that's how I'm looking at this. If you want to play the original Ocarina of Time, you can do that. It's on Nintendo Switch Online. You can play that. You can play Ocarina of Time 3D. This is something new, and that's a huge deal. That's what I'm interpreting from this. And yet, we still have more. Look at that. Actually, this is crazy. Just look at this. It's very subtle, but notice when he jerks. Look at his face. Like, you just like the realistic facial expressions we're seeing there. There's a lot of detail going into this, is what I'm trying to say. And now the logo. So epic, how it flashes with gold like that. It's no longer red, it's gold, which is cool. But also, this is carrying the style from Breath and Tears, the destroyed Zelda logo, like the decayed ancient Zelda logo, which I think also kind of speaks to the idea that this, in a way, might be kind of like Ocarina of Time, dare I say it, in the Breath of the Wild engine? Like, could they have taken the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom engine and are now making Ocarina of Time with it? And to be clear, because I know a lot of people misunderstand this, the engine does not mean the style. We've already seen the style. The style is clearly a very realistic looking Zelda we have never seen before. Never before, right? The engine is more so about the underlying structure, how the game works, but this could speak to the abilities in the game, how we play through the game, the physics and all. And that would also be further suggestive of a very new, fresh experience here. At the very least, what I do think this is suggesting is a modernization of Ocarina of Time to be on par with something like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. So, to me, super big, giant deal, and there again, we see 2026. This is going to be the big title for Switch 2 this year. This is going to be the main thing we're going to be talking about throughout the year. So buckle up, everyone. We are just scratching the surface. These are exciting times as we continue to talk about and theorize and hype up Ocarina of Time. And I think it's all going to be worth it because this is going to be just one of the best things ever. I'm just so hyped. I'm so excited. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye. And don't forget, you can use my code SLEEPRESTART when checking the link in the description below for the Manta Sleep Mask.